What's up, San Diego? Good morning to all of you. The Braden Surprenant Show is back in action on a Sunday morning. Had a lot going on with the NFL playoffs and everything like that. Knocked us off the air, but we are back. Couple other dates mixed in that we'll have. But the Braden Surprenant Show is officially back. I forgot about how quick of a transition this is. From Let's Talk Hookup onto the Braden Surprenant. It's a 15-second transition period. So had to get in here. Jeff Hamby helped me out by jumping out and as I jump in. But got a lot to talk about on the show today when it comes to not only Padres baseball, but Aztec basketball with a big win yesterday against Boise State. That win's going to give them a little bit of breathing room, not necessarily out of the woods yet. They do have a couple of games coming up against some of the top teams in the Mountain West Conference in New Mexico and in Utah State. And if they can handle those teams, they'll be in really good shape for the NCAA tournament where they don't have to worry about potentially winning the Mountain West tournament. Now, that being said, if they lose, I think if they split those games, they'll probably be in good shape. But that was a big win for them. They can kind of take a little bit of a breather before they get ready for this week. Now, they can't lay an egg against Fresno State this week. That would be catastrophically bad. Fresno State's got 5 wins. They're not a good basketball team. And you got them on Tuesday at Viejas. You have to be able to blow those guys out, and then you focus on taking on Utah State Saturday night in Logan, Utah. A place where UCSD went in and got a W. So we'll talk about the Big Aztecs win in just a little bit. We'll talk about UCSD after last night as well, see where they stand in this entire thing. They're currently near the top of the Big West. Will the Big West get 2 teams in the tournament? Probably not. I know there was some talk about expanding the NCAA tournament. I'm totally against that, which I think a lot of people are surprised by because I'm a guy that wants to expand the college football playoff. But I think once you get to a certain point, there's no reason to expand. There's 68 teams now in the NCAA tournament. That's plenty. I don't need any more than that. You really didn't even need 68. 64 was fine on its own. But the NCAA and the powers to be and the guys in the suits have started to realize how much money you make off these tournament games and how people are interested in watching games that come down to the wire and guys busting their ass, that they're like, we need more of these games. No, we don't. Funny, they brought it up on, and I was going to talk about this later, but I'm on a roll now, so I might as well continue this. They brought it up on College Game Day yesterday. Alabama, Auburn, number 1 versus number 2. Auburn's number 1 in the country. Auburn ended up winning that game last night. But they had College Game Day. They do it for basketball, too, on Saturday mornings for anybody that's not a diehard college sports fan that only thinks they do it for football. They should do it for baseball, too. College baseball started this weekend. That's a different story. But on College Game Day, they had the report from Pete Thamel talking about how they want to expand to 72, maybe 78 teams in the NCAA tournament. And all the college kids and the people that came out to College Game Day in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, started to boo the report. And Reese Davis acted like he was shocked. He was like, what, you guys don't want this? You don't want my... No, nobody wants this. We don't want an expanded tournament. Why? Why add more mediocre teams to the NCAA tournament? And here's the thing. It's not like, and you look at the bubble right now, it's not like they are going to expand the NCAA tournament and then the Big West gets 2 schools in with Irvine and UCSD. No, that's not going to happen. It's not like another Mountain West school is going to get in the NCAA tournament. Maybe an actually deserving school like a University of San Francisco who came into town this weekend and beat up on USD. I mean, USF's a good basketball team. But they're not getting in on the expansion. They're not going to add another Big South team. UNC Asheville and High Point doing really well in the Big South. The expanded tournament's not going to get 2 of those teams in. The expanded tournament is going to get Georgia in the NCAA tournament. It's going to get more SEC schools in the NCAA tournament that probably have no business being in it to begin with. They just trade blows in conference play, and they live in this bubble that makes it look like they're better than everybody else. I mean, I can look at it right now with the Big 12. The Big 12 conference is one of the better conferences in college basketball. My TCU Horned Frogs are 7-7 in the Big 12. They're not that great of a basketball team. They're not. They're not even close to the bubble. They lost to Santa Clara earlier in the year. They lost to Colorado State. They're an okay team. And the thing is, in conference games in college, they're hard to win. And they're especially hard to win on the road, regardless of who you're playing. So you're going to have teams that are going to beat good teams in conference play that have no business doing so. It doesn't mean they're a good enough team to make the NCAA tournament. You know, they punish schools like Irvine and UCSD for losing a game on the road in Big West play, yet they don't punish the big schools that do the same thing to lousy teams in power conferences. I'd love to see TCU make the NCAA tournament. They're not an NCAA tournament team. They're just not. And they've knocked off Baylor, and they've beat BYU, and they've beat some teams that are going to be in the NCAA tournament. They got Texas Tech this week, and if it's not out of the realm of possibility that they beat the 12th ranked Red Raiders at home. But those are the type of schools that they would sneak into the NCAA tournament over the mid-major schools. Again, because it's a deal to get more money for the mid-major for the power conferences. We're going to talk more college basketball in a second. I see people in the chat talking about it. I put it out in the tweet. I was fired up last night when I got home about the Four Nations face-off. What a bloodbath that is. I mean, that is must-watch sports television right now. The Four Nations face-off, for anybody that hasn't tuned in, if you haven't seen it on social media yet, I mean, you got to tune into this. The NHL has put on this tournament with 4 countries in it, which was it's Sweden, it's Finland, it's Canada, it's the United States. Russia's banned right now because of whatever hockey federation was in charge. The international they're getting banned for obviously invading Ukraine, and I don't want to get political, but that's why they're not in the tournament. But in any other time, they would probably have them in it too. And I wouldn't be surprised if they expand this thing to a couple of more countries in the midst of this. But what the NHL has done in a non-Olympic year is they have put together a tournament where NHL players are playing for their home countries in an all-star type tournament, which is way better than any all-star game that they've ever had. Because, again, in the all-star games, they're not going very hard. They're trying not to get hurt, right? They're representing their organization, but at the same time, it's not a cause that they believe in. They're not representing their country. And these athletes love to represent, especially the ones that are not from the United States. And they come out here and they play in the United States. They have so much pride representing Sweden and Finland, and obviously Canada. Drew Doughty of the Canadian national team, who played for the LA Kings, and he's won multiple Stanley Cups, and he's won Olympic gold. In their first game, in Canada's first game, he said it was the fastest game he has ever played in as a hockey player. Ever. And we're in an all-star break in the middle of the NHL season. I'm curious to see what his opinions were about last night's game against Team USA. But what the Four Nations face-off has done, it has gotten people that are not even hockey fans to watch and live and die on hockey. I like hockey. I am a hockey fan, but I'm not like a diehard fan, right? I grew up in Southern California. It's not, I root for the Anaheim Ducks. I like the San Diego Gulls because they're in town. I like hockey, but I don't necessarily love hockey. I mean, I'm not like one of those lovers of hockey. If it's on, I'll watch it. I'll watch the Ducks games on Victory Plus. I understand the rules, right, with offsides and icing. I understand the basic concepts of hockey, but by all means, I couldn't name you a bunch of players I couldn't name you a player on every single team. I couldn't name you a bunch of. I like hockey. It's just not on the top of my list of sports to watch. I like college basketball. I'm obviously a big baseball fan. I love football, college football, the NFL. I like hockey. I don't necessarily love hockey. I like going to games. I enjoy watching it, but at the same time, I'm not one of those. I'm not even going to consider nor try to pretend that I'm some diehard hockey fan that knows, the X's and O's of what's going on in the sport. I'm willing to learn. I don't mind, but at the same time, that's where I'm at. I got home from the USD TCU baseball game last night, and some of the group texts that I was a part of were fired up about USA hockey, so I had to pull up on social media what was going on. They had 9 fights in like the first 5 minutes of the game last night between Team USA and Canada. It was awesome. The hits in that game was insane. It was top level stuff. But what happened last night is something that you would love to see other organizations and other leagues do. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to play some of the highlights here on the YouTube page. Again, Braden Surprenant Show. I'm Braden Surprenant. We're live on YouTube. We're live on my YouTube page, 97.3 The Fan. We're live on Facebook, live on Twitch. I'm going to show those highlights in a little bit. We're going to talk about Team USA, Team Canada when we come back. And I want to hear your thoughts on the Four Nations face-off. I mean, I'd love to see this in other sports. We talked about this on Annie Nelson with the World Baseball Classic put in the middle of the season. But this is just must-watch television. I'll explain why you need to be watching Team USA in hockey when they play the next couple of games here. They've already clinched a spot in the championship game, but we got to take a quick break. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. We are rolling on a Sunday morning, going from 9 to 11 right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning. New time in 2025, 9 to 11. Beautiful day in America's finest city. Had the rain earlier this week. Should be a great day for some college baseball. TCU's in town to take on the USD Toreros. San Diego State is in Arizona in a tournament. UCSD is up playing in Stockton. The first weekend of college baseball has gotten underway. I'll be over at Fowler Park for TCU and USD baseball on the call on ESPN Plus. Game 3 of a 4-game set. TCU took the first 2 games. USD trying to finish off with the last 2 games. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Talking about the Four Nations face-off. It's been electric hockey. I mean, it's just been fun. Again, I saw people commenting on it on social media, and the videos that they've been putting out have been great. I'm not going to play the audio of this one, but if you're watching on YouTube, you know, some of the highlights of last night, they have Freebird playing in the background because that's the song that Team USA has after they score a goal, but the hits in these games have been insane, and Team USA getting after it. They started off the game with a bunch of fights in the first 9 seconds. Team USA went down 1-0 last night and then scored 3 unanswered goals against Canada and just wrecked shop against the Canadians in an old school, good old-fashioned hate rivalry game in hockey, in international hockey. I mean, Canada booed the national anthem for the United States twice now, and they messed around, and then now they have found out. And I don't know if you saw the post-game celebration for Team USA. It was a fun little chant. I obviously cannot play that on the radio. But they went through this chant and put a hockey stick in my hand, sent me off to a foreign land, and then went through and basically said, you just got the bleep kicked out of you by Team USA, is their whole little deal. And it was fun to watch. I mean, I watched the highlights after the fact, and the energy you could feel in that game and in that contest, and what the Four Nations face-off has brought to hockey. It is they hit it out of the park. I mean, they hit it out of the park with this idea of having the conference or having the countries compete in a tournament in the middle of the season. It's great. They're going to take a week and a half off, 2 weeks off, and they're going to let 4 countries battle it out. And they're all NHL players, too. It's not like you have a bunch of college kids playing, which is still good entertainment, but you have, this is the highest level of an all-star game you could potentially get for the National Hockey League. It's way better. It's way better than watching the Pro Bowl is the worst. And if you look at the NBA All-Star Game this weekend, I mean, there's a bunch of events going on, and the celebrity contest is honestly the best thing that they have in that entire thing. Skills competition last night in the NBA, the guys are going through the motions so much they bent the rules that the Spurs got eliminated from the skills competition because they found a loophole to not even shoot the basketball on 2 different spots that they had to shoot. They just kind of threw the ball out there and said, oh, well, I missed. We're trying to go for time here. I mean, you couldn't get 2 different levels of an all-star weekend than the NHL and the NBA. You can't get 2 levels of the sport. And what sports are than the NBA and the NHL right now. The NHL successfully got a bunch of people that don't watch hockey or are like me, kind of into hockey, kind of not really, to pay attention to their sport this weekend in the middle of the season. NFL can't do an all-star game to save their life. The NBA is trying, but it's been so boring with a 3-point contest. It's not, you don't want to watch it at all. Major League Baseball used to have a little bit of some action in the all-star game because at least the players that were on good teams were trying to compete for an advantage in the World Series, a home field advantage in the World Series. Which, don't get me wrong, that is also dumb to determine a World Series home team, even though it's only really one game. It's only one game that you get. That's a difference. But at the same time, it gave them an incentive to play. It gave them an incentive to play. And right now, in sports, we have created so many mercenary athletes that are constantly bouncing around to different organizations, different schools, not having any allegiance to what they're playing for. And that whole saying, right, from the movie Miracle about how the name on the front is a whole hell of a lot more important than the name on the back. We've gotten away from that in sports on so many different levels. And it's not just the players' fault. I mean, the organizations are like that too, because it is a business. You go to that saying, it's not personal, it's business. I mean, that's what this is. The professional sports are a business. It's an entertainment business. And so the players got wise and started to realize that why would I be loyal to an organization that's not loyal to me? The organization cannot make emotional decisions, again, because that's going to hurt your wallet. And so over the last 8, 10, 15 years, you've seen this hired mercenary level of sports. And the way you were able to watch that high-level passion of sports for the players that are playing for something bigger than themselves was college. And now that's gone in college athletics, too, because they don't even have deals. It's just a one-year contract every year, and they're just jumping to different spots. There's no loyalty to the team, and I'm not saying these players have to have loyalty when the organizations don't have loyalty to them, but there's a massive difference between what you are watching in this Four Nations face-off compared to what you watch every single day with professional and college sports. More so than just it being regular season games, too. One of the best things about the NCAA tournament, and why it's probably one of the most watched sporting events every single year, is you have 68 teams that have a bunch of players on it that are potentially playing the sport that they have played since they were 5 years old for the final time. That's what makes the NCAA tournament must-watch TV. They're playing like their lives depend on it. Because in a way, their basketball careers do. There's not enough teams at the professional level, even internationally, where the players playing in the NCAA tournament have a spot to move on to the next level. It's just, there's not enough room. And so even though some of these big blue blood schools that have the one-and-doners, right, as they're always coined to be named, have bigger and bigger fish to fry after the NCAA tournament when they move on to professional sports, most of the players playing in the NCAA tournament that are out of eligibility are playing basketball for the final time. And every win they get to play another basketball game. And as soon as they lose, it is over. That is a level of passion and level of play that you get in that tournament, why it's one of the most watched tournaments and most watched sporting events in the country every single year. That's why the Four Nations face-off is so popular. These guys are playing their ass off for their country and that sense of pride for the flag that's on their jersey. And it's not just Team USA. It's Canada, it's Finland, it's Sweden. That sense of pride playing for their country and where they come from. You just don't get that in professional sports anymore. And you used to. I mean, you used to watch way back in the day with the NBA. I mean, there were games where the other team, where teams hated each other. That's why people love rivalry games. Get some passion out of the players, where they're not just mercenaries. That's why this has been such a fun tournament. Now, how can other leagues do this? The NBA has gotten to a point now where they have a lot of international players, but I don't know if they have enough all-stars to do this in the middle of the season. The in-season tournament's been pretty good. I mean, for the NBA, the money value of playing for cash has helped out a little bit in the in-season tournament. Maybe you got to do that for the All-Star break instead. For Major League Baseball, the easy fix is the World Baseball Classic. And I know, and here's the thing. The NHL set aside the greed and everything with taking time off from all of their own games and hosting and making their own money for the betterment of hockey. I'm sure they're making money off this too. I'm not going to cry pity that they're making a gigantic sacrifice, but they are making some type of sacrifice, which is something Major League Baseball never does. If baseball took 2 weeks off in the middle of the summer, started that year a little bit earlier than they usually do in spring training, and did it every 4 years, and instead of doing the All-Star game, did the World Baseball Classic in the middle of July, it would be must-watch television, and the money they lose from not hosting games during those 2 weeks, because only a couple of host sites would have it, would be the investment into the sport that they need for people to dive into baseball. People would be so excited to watch Team USA in Japan and watch the Dominican Republic and watch Venezuela and watch Puerto Rico and all of their favorite MLB guys compete at a high level in all-star level games, that at the end of the World Baseball Classic, when they start the second half of the season, they would have everybody's attention for the rest of the summer. And instead, they do it in spring when pitchers aren't built up and they throw it together and it's whatever. It's not that risky with arms. They would be pitching in these games anyway in Major League Baseball. They're actually built up at this point in July. That's the sacrifice they have to make in order for the betterment of their sport. Because I think a lot of people are getting tired of watching players in these leagues not go as hard as what you saw last night in hockey. And you're starting to see it with ratings in all sports going down, with the exception of the NFL, and you're starting to see it with attendance numbers and everything else. People want to see the best athletes compete against the best athletes and showing their best at all times. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. If you want to join the show, I got Mitch in New Jersey on hold. We're going to get to him when we come back. We'll talk about the Aztecs with the big win. What's it mean for their bubble? Is the bubble going to burst, or they got a little bit more breathing room after last night? We'll talk about it when we come back on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning, right here on 97.3 The Fan. 9:37 on a Sunday morning. Morning, San Diego. Thanks again for tuning in. Local programming on a Sunday is back. Braden Surprenant Show each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11. I'll be off next week. I'll be with USD in Tucson. I'm taking on the Arizona Wildcats in baseball. We'll talk about some college basketball right now. Big win for San Diego State last night. Big win for UC San Diego last night as well. Tritons won by 25 over Davis, 85-60 at Lion Tree Arena. San Diego State at home last night won 64-47 over Boise State. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute, but we do want to get to our phone calls today. If you want to join the show, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to New Jersey. Mitch, what's going on? Long time no talk. Sorry, I've been off the last couple of weeks.
It seems like, how you doing, Brandon? It seems like a couple of months, but you deserve it. Come on, you're young. You shouldn't have to work 6 days. But if you love your job, you don't work it all.
Hey, you never work a day in your life when you love your job, Mitch. I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying doing it. It is, but I tell you what, it is nice having a Sunday morning off the last couple of weeks. It's been caught up on some sleep and some other things and some other tasks, but it's good to be back on the airwaves.
Well, me, it's the opposite. I mean, I love having my grandson, but it's a handful. He thinks it's cool. It's the only time to get some peace because he breaks every toys. Wants to hear his music. He doesn't care whether you're watching TV, sports. Boom, he's taking over. He'll be 3 in July. By the way, I see like baseball, in West Coast guys, especially USC. Bruce Robinson, this transfer rules is getting out of hand. You had to send it over to Florida State. I don't know if he knows it. DJ Youngerland is going to try his luck with the NFL, but it doesn't look good. He'd probably be a free agent outside UFA. It's very hard to play the baseball. I like the number of games. The football game too much, and they're going to go 18 soon, probably sooner than later. I just like the Olympics. I like it with soccer. I don't think it can work with baseball. You got these investments, you got these arms, unless they put in the minor leagues. But if they get hurt, I guess they should have insurance. It's a conundrum. Hockey's a little different. I'm not saying hockey's not rough, you get hurt. But like a pitcher hurts his rotator cuff, he's out for a year.
I understand what you're talking about, Mitch, and I appreciate the phone call. I mean, but the thing is, if hockey can do it, they're skating on blades. They're basically skating on knives. And there are some collisions happening in hockey. Unless we just think, we know, hockey players are obviously maybe a little bit more tougher than baseball players, but at the same time, all these are you telling me a pitcher cannot make it through an entire season pitching? I mean, if his arm's gonna blow out, it's gonna blow out. It doesn't really matter if he's playing in a game in July that matters, or if he's just coasting through the season. I mean, this was never really a problem. You're trying to handle these professional athletes with kid gloves. It's just, you can do it. The sacrifice is risky. Somebody might get hurt. That's a shame. But for the betterment of the sport, it'd be better to do the World Baseball Classic in the middle of the season. And you could still have all the minor league guys play. And everybody that doesn't make these rosters can play in games. They could do an in-season tournament with those guys anyway. You can make it fun. Make them play less games that year. I mean, there's so many answers to this. Like, somebody's going to blow their arm out. Let's start thinking outside the box here, guys. I'm not saying with Mitch. I'm just saying in general. I think it's an excuse because they're greedy and they want to keep all the money for themselves. Not the players, but just the Major League Baseball. They like the tickets sales of the regular season. The ticket sales of the regular season. The players make more money in the regular season. Owners love all the home games in the summertime. But do the World Baseball Classic and then have an in-season tournament for everybody else. These guys would play hard. And you could bring up whoever you want, and it shouldn't count towards their They should get a little bit of MLB service time, but it shouldn't count as an option where the clock starts for these guys. I mean, think about it this way. If you look at the Padres roster, again, I want to talk about Aztec basketball in a second, but if you look at the San Diego Padres roster and you start looking at guys that played in the last World Baseball Classic, there's a lot of Padres that would be on these teams. A lot of Padres would be on these teams. Go look through the roster. I mean, they've been showing World Baseball Classic reruns on MLB Network right now to get people excited about baseball, I guess. But if you look at the roster, start going through it. Jason Adams at the top of the list for pitchers. He pitched for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic last time out. I mean, Dylan Cease would probably be on Team USA. You actually get to see pitchers pitch if you did it like this. Give them a pitch clock or a pitch count, like Little League. You go 84 pitches, you can't pitch for another 4 days or something like that. I mean, they have it built in for the kids. I think it'd be awesome. It would be great. I mean, that's the risk you take. Here's the deal. Here's the thing with professional. I know they get hurt and you're trying to win a championship. At the end of the day, for the professional sports leagues, it's about entertainment. It's really not about the only ones that care about the championships are the fans. Players will take it. They don't necessarily are going to do everything for it. They're going to give they're giving their bodies on the line right now in the Four Nations face-off. But to go back to the Padres, Darvish for Team Japan, right? I mean, there's a lot of pitchers that could probably pitch for their home countries. Adrian Morejon for Cuba. You know, there's a handful of American pitchers on there that could probably play. Luisa Rise played for Venezuela. Xander Bogaerts played for the Netherlands. Manny Machado, Dominican Republic. Fernando Tatis Jr., Dominican Republic. You take all of those players off the Padres roster. They're playing in the World Baseball Classic in the middle of the season. And then you start filling it with some of the top minor league players for the in-season tournament. Let some of these guys come up and play. Maybe you get to see DeVries and Salas. Maybe you get to see some of these players and give an opportunity, and then you still are filling the stadiums. Again, it's not about the players' safety or the players' health. They use that as an excuse. It's about filling their stadium and missing out on home games where they could sell tickets. That's what it's really about. But if baseball wants to actually get ahead of the curve and not be 10 years behind every other professional sports league, they need to jump at doing a World Baseball Classic in the middle of the summer every 4 years. It doesn't even have to be every year. Every 4 years. Make the season start a little bit earlier than that in those 4 years. You do it in 2 weeks. You don't even need 16 teams like they have. Just get the top 8. They could do qualifying in other years with other players or in the wintertime. I mean, what about all these players that go play in the Dominican League in the wintertime? We're not worried about them getting hurt. I mean, they haven't gotten hurt yet, knock on wood for some of those players, but it's going to happen. You play sports, people are going to get hurt. It's unfortunate, but that's just it is what it is. You can't prevent that from happening. But what the Four Nations face-off has done is just made this, they've set the bar incredibly high. And the thing's not even over yet. Team USA still has one more game they got to play. They got to play Sweden. Doesn't even matter. They're in the championship anyway. Jake Waters says in the chat, Panthers player and Team USA star got hurt last night. Could have got hurt in a different game. It doesn't really matter. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's talk about college basketball last night. We're going to start with UC San Diego because their kind of situation's not really changing too much. They're on the bubble, kind of. I don't really know exactly where they are. They're considered the champion right now of the Big West based on standings, and then if you go through the tie-breaking procedures between the number 1 versus number 2, it gets kind of messy. with the Big West. Irvine's listed as a next 4 out, so maybe that's where they would be. I think they would be a next 4 out UCSD. As of right now, for the Big West, you got to win the Big West championship in order to make the NCAA tournament anyway, and UCSD is going in that direction. They had a good night last night. McGuy had 22 points, 7 for 11 from the field. Tate Jones, 6 rebounds, a leading rebounder for UC San Diego. They jumped out to an early lead and never looked back. I mean, they were up 44-20. They're up 24 points with 4:34 to go in the first half. And just cruised in the second half. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do against inferior opponents. And UC Davis is not that much inferior. I mean, they're a pretty decent squad of the Big West. But McGuy had 22 points. Tate Jones had 16. Hayden Gray had 13. Hal had 8. Milovich had 4. No double-doubles to report on for UC San Diego. They cruised to a victory over UC Davis. And again, trying to keep pace with UC Irvine at the top of the standings. Irvine last night was in Hawaii, and they knocked off Hawaii 66-49. Again, if you look at the Big West standings, as of right now, UC San Diego's got the tiebreaker based on how everybody else does against teams below them. It's kind of a crazy thing. Everything else is tied for Irvine and San Diego. UC San Diego doesn't really matter. They're going to get the 1 and 2 seed in the Big West tournament as long as they continue to keep pace with each other in the standings. They both sit at 12 and 2 atop the leaderboard. Not much to report on when it comes to UCSD. As of, I think, yesterday, with the latest, or sorry, should I say Friday, with the latest bracketology as put out by Joe Lenardi, UC San Diego is listed as a 12 seed in the South region, going against potentially Marquette, and then the winner would play Michigan State and High Point in the Seattle first round of the NCAA tournament. On to San Diego State. Now, this one's more important because San Diego State is trying to get in as an at-large so they don't have to win the Mountain West tournament in Vegas in a couple of weeks. That being said, if they win that tournament, they don't have to worry about anything. They're just automatically in. Aztecs last night, again, kind of went back and forth in the first half, not too much. It was a defensive game, a typical Aztec defense game where they shut down Boise State up to 47 points. Aztecs took a 17-14 lead with 8:03 to go in the first and then never looked back, extended their lead upwards to a 46-23 spot where they led by 23 points, and then they ended up winning by 17 over Boise State. Last night, good performances out of a lot of Aztec players. I had to look at the box score. Magoon Guath at 8 and 5. Jared Coleman-Jones 7 and 4. Miles Bird with 10 points and 4 rebounds. But the star of the night in 36 minutes of play, Nick Boyd, 24 points for the Aztecs with 6 rebounds. Was 2 for 2 from the free throw line, 10 for 14 from the field. Aztecs shot 54% from the field last night, and when the Aztecs are shooting like that, it's going to be tough to beat them. But it's 54% from the field, 41% from the three-point line. Way better shooting percentages for the Aztecs, who sweep Boise State on the season. That is a major win with San Diego State. Major win for San Diego State. Because not only is Boise State competing for an at-large bid, but you have given yourself a solid win against a good team in conference. It raised their net and it raised their RPI. Their RPI now jumped up to 40. They moved up 9 spots in the RPI. Strength of schedule at 54, the Aztecs are. Non-conference strength of schedule is 10. Houston got another big win yesterday against Arizona. The more Houston wins, the better it's going to be for San Diego State, who is now 3-3 in Quad 1 games in the RPI, 3-2 in Quad 2, 3-1 in Quad 3, and a perfect 7-0 in Quad 4 games. So San Diego State moves up to 40 in the latest RPI. UC San Diego moves up 1 spot to 42. In the net rankings, Aztecs at 50. They jumped up 2 more spots. UC San Diego jumped 7 spots last night with their win in the net. They're now up to 43 in the net rankings, which again is good for both San Diego State and UCSD. And the fact that San Diego State beat UCSD also it helps that every time UC San Diego wins basketball games. In the 50 range in the net, you're still a little bit on the bubble. Going a little bit higher in the RPI in the top 40 is really good for San Diego State. But overall, a good win. And, you start looking at the bubble and where the bubble's at. If San Diego State could play their way out of that first 4 games and being a last 4 team in, they could breathe a pretty heavy sigh of relief. Because Boise State yesterday going into the game was the last team in the next 4 out before losing to San Diego State. So helping their cause, the Aztecs did yesterday. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973 if you want to join the show. Talk Aztec basketball. College baseball is in full swing this weekend. USD dropped the first 2 games against TCU, looking to bounce back later on this afternoon at 1 o'clock at Fowler Park. But we do have some updates on the Padres that we want to get to in the next hour of the show. We're going to talk a lot of Padres baseball in the next hour about where the team currently aligns with some of the moves that they made last week. They found left fielders to play left field. They found a couple within the organization. And tease about Eggy Rosario potentially playing some left field as well with the Connor Joe, with Jason Hayward, creating competition in camp. What are you going to do with Gavin Sheets? Can he hit his way onto the roster? Padres pitching got an upgrade in their starting rotation with Nick Pivetta. Does this prevent them from making a trade, trading away a Dylan Cease or a Michael King? Or does it make it more easy for them to do that? I think they're going to stick with the rotation, and the rotation they've put together is pretty good. And now they've created competition for the back end of that rotation. Xander Bogaerts has dropped 10 pounds, which is great. Really trying to lock into being the everyday shortstop. I think Xander is poised to have a really good year. And the way that he plays the game and goes about his business, and I talked about it last year, we're going to talk about it in the next hour, but Xander Bogaerts is the type of player you want in your organization. And you added, I thought, another one of those guys with Jason Hayward, who met with the media earlier this week and said all the right things. And a guy like Connor Joe and this clubhouse coming together is a good group, which goes a long way in baseball. And there's a lot more than just what the stat sheet says. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, plus a little bit more on Xander Bogaerts' offseason, why he feels good. He caught up with Kevin Acee from the San Diego Union Tribune. We'll talk about that, where the Padres roster goes. Get to a Padres hour. Coming up next, final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11. San Diego's number 1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show, taking up to 11 o'clock this morning. Going to be back on the airwaves on a Sunday morning. Talked a lot about the Four Nations face-off in the first part of the show with some Aztec basketball. We're going to get back to Aztec basketball in just a little bit. Bubble watch. Take a look at the bubble for San Diego State. Got a little bit easier after last night, but they're not out of the woods yet. They do have some big games coming up that they have to take care of. But we do want to talk some Padres baseball. Want to get some of you fans involved. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I'll be afraid to call on a Sunday morning talking Padres baseball. Had a lot of developments this week. Obviously, first week of camp for a lot of people, as we have Padres back in action. Pitchers and catchers reported back. We have all of the position players are now back in action, putting together a roster, making some moves. A.J. Preller last minute, getting Connor Joe signed to a deal, getting Jason Hayward signed to a deal last week, getting Nick Pivetta signed to a deal, filling out some of the roster holes for the San Diego Padres. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the show, about what that means after some of the moves. But the story that came out yesterday from Kevin Acee, which was actually updated this morning, was a piece on Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts getting ready to start his third season now with the San Diego Padres. Has battled injuries in his Padres career. And for the amount of money that he's been getting, a lot of people have been on him about not living up to the expectation. And so many people in the chat all the time, in the YouTube chat during the shows, want him traded so bad because he hasn't been worth the $25 million. But when reading this article, you see about what this guy is about. And I said it last year. He is a pro's pro. And I think what the Padres did to him last year was kind of ridiculous. The whole, let's not tell him he's not playing shortstop until he gets to spring training, which throws him. I think we screwed him up. But let's talk about Xander's offseason. And this is what he did with this is what he said with Kevin Acee yesterday in the article. If you want to go check it out, it's on SanDiegoUnionTribune.com. It's in the paper. He started running a lot at the end of last season to get into shortstop shape. Article starts talking about the runs begin near Alhambra Casino 3 or 4 mornings a week throughout November and December. For 6 or sometimes 8 or 9 kilometers, Xander would run on the strand that winds along the white sand in Clearwater, fronting the string of resorts on the west coast of Aruba, shedding extra weight, getting back into shortstop shape, chasing youth. Xander says he feels really, really young. I ran a lot this offseason, was a very different one than a lot of ones that I've had. When I tell you I ran a lot, man, I ran a lot. And the question of why was I'm going back to shortstop and my age. He turns 32. He turned 32 in October. He's going to be a 32-year-old shortstop. He's getting $25 million a year on this 11-year deal. And what he talks about in the article with Kevin Acee, again, you can go ahead and read it. He knows he's not getting any younger, and he knows how much money he's making, and he understands what his role is and what the city of San Diego deserves. He said the Padres are paying me 11-year, $280 million contract, and these are my prime years. Between him and Machado, these are their prime years where they're going to be making a combined $65 million a year until they're both 40 and a little bit past that. We know that this is our time, and that's why we work so hard. We push so hard for it now to be now. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't want to be good at 35, 36, 37, but you know that these are the prime years because this is what we kind of built our roster for. These are our prime years that we're very aware of. That's not very common that baseball players have this mentality where they got the contract and we got to go out there and show that we got it. There's a lot of baseball players. I mean, I don't like beating a dead horse. I mean, but Anthony Rendon's situation in Anaheim is like the exact opposite of Xander here. I mean, Rendon has nothing to do with playing. He's collecting a check. He's constantly hurt. He's not like he's trying to really come back and help out the team too much. Where Xander is upset that the Padres have not won a World Series since he came over, and he's upset that they have been, or he has been, not living up to the expectations that he was set for himself. He says it comes with the contract. I think some of it has to do with you coming to a city that has not won. Bogart said, I've been part of some winning teams, championship teams of the Red Sox, so I don't know if it's like you're supposed to be kind of a savior. But for him, it's different. He was in a city and on a team that it can be hard for him there, but over on that side, it's a little different because they expect that every day. That's how they are. Coming here is kind of the same, but I think it's a little bit more because of the want to win badly, and that's something that I respect and I understand. Like, they want it so bad. And Xander used the term they and then quickly went back to we. They've never won here. I say they, but I mean we because I'm a part of it now. We've never won here. It's like every year we come up just short if we ever make it, or are we just short of making the playoffs? And I think that creates a lot of frustration. The kids come to the ballpark, the grandparents, the dads, they're getting old and have never witnessed anything. That's great. I love everything about what Xander Bogaerts is as a player. It is important to him to win for the city of San Diego. That's not the case for a lot of players. That's not the case for a lot of players that have played in San Diego. He signed his contract for 11 years and $280 million, $25 million a year. And he hasn't lived up to the expectations that he has set for himself or what the fans expected of him, and it bothers him. You need more players like that on your roster. It bothers him. Obviously, you could tell in this article, again, you can read it, Kevin Acee in the San Diego Tribune. It bothers Xander Bogaerts that they have been unable to bring San Diego a World Series in his limited time here. It bothers him that fans have gone to games for so many years and haven't been able to witness anything. He comes from an organization that has won multiple World Series, and it's making it one of his priorities to come in here and be able to play and give it his all. He considers himself a big piece. He knows what he's capable of doing when everything is right, and I always have the expectation of myself. I set the standard for myself. He knows it could have gone better the first two seasons. He's dealt with a wrist issue. Much of May and June, a strong second half, helped Bogaerts finish 2023 with a 285 average and a 790 OPS. His 4.6 Fangraphs WAR ranked second among National League shortstop behind New York Mets' Francisco Lindor. Last year, he appeared in just 111 games due to a fracture in his left shoulder that put him on the injured list from late May to mid-July. Also played second base for the first time in his career. His 266 average, 866 OPS, and 2-point F-WAR were all his lowest since 2014, his first full season in the majors. Not more, Bogart said when asked if he expects more of himself. He says a lot more. This offseason, he's down 10 pounds. He's leaner. He's more defined, according to Kevin Acey's article. And I think the best thing that he said is he feels young. He said he didn't want to make too big of a deal out of being back at shortstop, but called it an exciting challenge. He's got fight. He's got grit. He's got motivation to play at his best in 2025. He's playing for you fans out there in San Diego. And he's a guy that I think a lot of Padres fans need to get behind. Because this is not an overly common thing for veteran players that have big contracts in cities where they come to that they have won in other cities where they came from. I like the fight in Xander. I like the way that he has held himself accountable. And that's the definition of being a pro's pro. Being able to hold yourself accountable and get your spot, get your body and get your mind in the place it needs to be to play at a high level. And I'm excited to see Xander Bogaerts play in 2025. I think he's going to be a big asset for this team, for the San Diego Padres. He believes he's going to be a big reason why they win in San Diego. He wants to be a big reason why they win. And I believe everything he says. I don't think it's just a bunch of hearsay and eyewash and tongue-in-cheek. I think he honestly believes it. And Xander Bogaerts is poised to have a very big year. And I'm excited to watch him play at shortstop. And he's the type of player that you need in an organization, in a clubhouse. And they brought in more guys like that, like Connor Joe and Jason Hayward, some veteran players. Jason Hayward's won a World Series with the Chicago Cubs. He's been around the block. He is looking forward to helping the young players in the outfield. He's looking forward to contributing in any way possible. Those are the players you need in this clubhouse. Not the ones going for selfish reasons, but the ones that are playing for something that's bigger than them. Like we talked about in the Four Nations face-off. They're saying all the right things right now in Peoria, and I like what they're saying. But how do they look on paper? With the new additions, what happens next with the Padres? I'll answer that question when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant Show live and local each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11. Good to be back on the airwaves on a Sunday morning. I want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Got a lot of news and notes coming out of Padres spring training. We got a Padres spring training game coming up on Friday. Noon start against the Mariners. We got Padres baseball games. Spring training games, but games. Full team workouts start this week. With the first game on Friday, you can hear right here on 97.3 The Fan. Game against the Mariners on Friday, Athletics on Saturday, and Dodgers on Sunday of next week. You will be able to participate in on 97.3 The Fan, all on the radio, which is great. Padres baseball is back. We got a lot of news and notes coming out of camp. We talked about some of the moves that they made just to get everybody caught up in the last couple of weeks. Needed a left fielder. Padres went out and signed Connor Joe, $2 million, and Jason Hayward, $2 million. Two veteran players. Jason Hayward had a pretty good career and is trying to stay alive in Major League Baseball. I think he's still got a lot of good left in him. Connor Joe, local product out of Poway and San Diego High. Poway and the University of San Diego. Good to have him back in San Diego and now in a Padres uniform. That is your left field. Also have Eggy Rosario out there. Padres signed Nick Pivetta to a starting pitcher type role as well as Kyle Hart. So a lot of movement the last couple of weeks, which leads to Mike Schultz talking about what's next? They've acquired the guys. Now how are you going to play said guys? This is from Friday when he met with the media in Peoria. We'll get to some stuff that he said yesterday as well. Padres are off today with an off day, so no local reports coming out of Peoria. But on Friday, Mike Schultz had this to say about the left field situation. Hayward, Connor Joe, and maybe one more.
You got your two guys that maybe will be playing left field for you in today. I think the other day you were talking, and it seemed like maybe you were leaning like maybe Joe might play elsewhere as well. Like
He's done that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's like, is that the plan going in? Would you be surprised if they're the platoon? Or
I mean, it's a little early to say. We haven't started camp, but we got Jason here for a reason, and Connor here for a reason, and clearly there's a lefty and a righty, and Jason's obviously a very accomplished outfielder, so we'll let him go and seize the opportunity. With Connor, he's a guy with versatility. I think that was part of the reasoning for the sign, is he can play left field, but he can obviously play first base and maybe complement there occasionally, and DH spots open as well. So I think I don't want to put it into one situation for Connor and relative to he's only got a chance to platoon. He's got a chance to do other things too.
How do you view that DH spot? Is it kind of a competition among guys in camp? Will it still be a end of the season, day-to-day kind of thing? How do you view it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a set DH like we've maybe had in the past necessarily, which is fine. It's great. So we can pass it around a little bit, get guys off their feet. We know we have some days off early in the year, but that can be part of it. It'll be clearly matchup based, and then the spring will tell us who maybe seizes that opportunity to be that guy as a righty lefty or against everybody.
Eggy going to work in the outfield at all?
He is, yeah. He's going to work in some left field, and Eggy's a versatile guy, and we're gonna allow his versatility to play. So he'll definitely get some reps in the outfield.
There's a guy who can hit lefties.
He can hit lefties. Yes, he can. He's very good against lefties, so has proven that, and just a good player. So he's going to get a lot of opportunities this spring.
And left primarily or only?
Yeah, left pretty much primarily. I mean, feel like we've got guys with Lockridge, and Connor's played multiple different places, and anytime a guy goes, and I think Iggy could do it. He could play right field, but let's figure out one spot and then see where it goes from there.
So the competition continues. That's basically what that is being said. Mike Schilt talking about the competition in left field. Obviously, It's going to be a rotating group with Connor Joe and Jason Hayward. Aggie Rosario potentially in left field as well, who can hit lefties, which is great. And when you use that versatility, you want to keep somebody in the same spot. Don't necessarily want to mix it up and have him play different spots until he gets comfortable with one. So I think that's obviously where they're going with that. But it breeds competition. And these guys are all saying the right things when it comes to the preseason and spring training interviews and talking with the media. I love what Connor Joe and Jason Hayward said about what they got to do to help contribute to this team. I love what Xander Bogaerts said in holding himself accountable and losing 10 pounds and feeling youthful, trying to get in shape to try to be the best player that he could potentially be for the San Diego Padres. And all of that is great. And I can't wait to see it. I'm starting to get a little bit more excited with this team and what they have to offer. I mean, you look at what the team up north put together, and everybody can get upset about that, but they're out there, and this ball club is focused on themselves and knowing that they got a good club. Mike Shilton met with the media again yesterday, had a lot to say, mostly on the pitching side. And when you brought in Pivetta and you bring in Hart, and you already had a decent amount of players battling for that number 5 spot, you ask a little bit about whether or not you were going to stretch out Adrian Morejon or keep him in the bullpen. Mike Shilton said they were going to keep him in the bullpen, and here's the reasoning behind why Adrian Morejon's going to stick out of the pen.
Mike, you made the decision to keep Adrian in the bullpen. He obviously had a lot of success there last season. What do you kind of expect from him this year and how he can build upon what he did last year?
Yeah, and I mean, really good year. I mean, big reason why we were able to, win 93 games and, be able to compete as well as we did in the playoffs. Obviously didn't go as far as we'd like, but, Adrian really took the next step and had another good offseason, is in a really good spot. The communication was with him on that decision. He likes where he is and feels good about the role he's got and is ready to take the next steps to continue to be, more consistent, and his stuff's just elite. Fastball's good, 2-seamer's great, ground ball guy, sliders on the plate this spring. Everything's looking really good for Adrian.
You said you made that decision in conjunction with him. Like, how did that process play out? Talk with him and kind of just figure out what was the best role for him?
Yeah, I mean, we talk internally like we always do about our players and figure out what the possible roles are. And, a discussion was, okay, maybe this guy could start. And we didn't want to get too far down the road, decided that let's really put Adrian in on it. And, where's your headspace on this? And his headspace in a really good place of where he's at currently, in the, being able to grab the higher leverage from the left side for us. And, and we felt pretty convicted that'd be a good spot for him as well.
Adrian Morejon in the bullpen, according to Mike Shildt, as talked about earlier in the week and everything like that. I don't mind it. I mean, you got enough arms now with Nick Pivetta. Not enough. Rephrase that. You have plenty of arms to battle for the final rotation spot if you're the San Diego Padres with the addition of Pivetta. And you've put together a pretty good rotation. Pivetta is a 4. Darvish is a 3. Cease is a 2. Cease is a 1. King is a 2. King is a 1. I think Randy Vasquez is due to have a good year. Him competing with Johnny Brito, competing with Matt Waldron. Should be some good competition. Now, Matt Waldron as a knuckleball pitcher, got to find the right catcher. And the one that caught him last year was Kyle Higashioka, and he ain't here anymore. And the one that really couldn't catch him last year was Luis Camposano. So who's going to be catching Matt Waldron this season?
He obviously was kind of Waldron's guy catching the knuckleball. What's the status of your catching group as far as their experience with the knuckleball, and how could that play a factor if Waldron, let's say, did make the team?
Yeah, we have somebody's going to catch him, right? And the beautiful thing about the knuckleball is, to your point is, and we're going to continue to encourage him to use it, Matt, to use the knuckleball because, I mean, in just basic common sense, if it's hard to catch, it's not really good easy to hit. So specific to your question, it's going to be somebody that we're going to rotate around. Salas called him yesterday in his bullpen, and all reports I got was he did a really, really good job with it. And it's a mindset more than anything. There's no real technique to it as much as there is. I'm just going to catch this darn ball, or at least stop it. So yeah, we're going to be intentional about making sure Campy and Maldy and Diaz get their opportunities with it.
Going to be everybody, which should be the case in spring training. You got to find somebody to catch them, and might as well have everybody work on catching the knuckleball, especially if Matt Waldron's going to throw it more, as he should, because he is a knuckleball pitcher and he is the best. That is his best pitch, and a big reason why he's up in Major League Baseball. We're going to continue some of the Padres conversation. We'll also dive into the Aztec bubble. One more segment to go. If you want to join the show, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Braden Surprenant Show live and local each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, final segment of Sunday morning. Getting ready to head over to USD for Toreros and Horned Frogs. Baseball, college baseball back in the United States. USD with a 4-game series against TCU here in San Diego. Aztecs out of town in a tournament, and UCSD up playing in Stockton against Pacific. We'll have more games trickling out over the next couple of weeks, obviously. Tuesday, I'm pretty sure the Tritons take on San Diego State, first of the in-city games. UCSD, USD, and San Diego State all play each other on Tuesdays throughout the entire year. Well, I'll get back to your phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to Menifee, where Marcus is standing by. Marcus, what's going on?
Hey, Braden. So the executive meetings where they voted in the athletics owner as an executive to make the executive decisions, I thought that was a horrible call and actually is going to be a bad for the upcoming meetings. For a guy who didn't invest in his team, long story short for you, what do you think is, what's that going to look like for the future of baseball?
Just having Fisher part of the decision-making, or this big lockout that might be looming?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and Marcus, I appreciate the phone call. I don't think really, well, first of all, rewarding Fisher for what he has done as an owner is utterly ridiculous by Major League Baseball. I mean, we're talking about a guy that never spent any money on the roster for the Athletics, has been a penny pincher the entire time, has not really acted in good faith with the city of Oakland about keeping the A's there, was so fixated on going to Vegas because he was going to make a ton of money in a stadium in Vegas and being the Vegas A's or whatever the heck they're going to be called. And the way that he just put such a bad spin on Major League, or a bad look on Major League Baseball, for them to give him any type of reward for that as an executive in decision making is beyond ridiculous. Now, do I think it's going to make it even harder for a new CBA at the end of the 2026 season? I don't think it really matters who's in charge there, because this thing's going to be coming to a screeching halt very soon. Once we make it through 2025 this season, we have one more season left of Major League Baseball on the previous CBA. And the new CBA is going to have a lot discussed in it. One of them probably being deferred payments, and how that is affecting Major League Baseball and the luxury tax where teams are getting out of it. I think a lot of the contracts are going really high. There's a lot of things owners want in the new CBA that I don't think they've addressed before with the players, because they don't think it's ever going to go through. But one of those, of course, being a salary cap. I think the Dodgers mostly the Dodgers, I think spending this much money and a ton of money and really setting themselves above everybody else is affecting other important teams that don't want to go that high with money, because they don't have an international superstar in Shohei Ohtani and don't have hundreds of millions of dollars coming in on a TV contract. Even some of the best organizations in Major League Baseball. And the way that they're doing the deferred money is affecting teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Giants and some of the traditional teams that usually make all the rules with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I could see a salary cap and salary floor potentially coming, but that's not something the players want to go for at all. which means you're going to have a long period of time where they do not do anything and there's a lockout or there's a strike. And when there's a lockout or a strike, as we've experienced a couple of years ago, the entire sport goes dark. And we have seen during the COVID pandemic, sides not budge to get their way as part of the negotiating tactics. We've seen them air out their laundry in the public court of opinions. We have seen them both get nasty, and we've seen it during the trying to get games going during COVID, and then again in the latest CBA that we experienced right after that. One that didn't last very long because they only signed it through 2026. These particular situations and topics of discussion of what the owners and what the players want on this next CBA are even on a higher scale than they were the last CBA. I mean, we're talking about Major League Baseball as run with Rob Manfred as the commissioner, try to eliminate many minor league organizations and minor leagues and levels. And if it was up to the powers that be in Major League Baseball, without the players' consent, they would probably lop off single A, low single A, high single A, and just do double A and triple A. That's something that's probably going to be on the docket. Salary cap, salary floor. How are we going to do a luxury tax? Are we going to increase those payments? There's a lot of things the players want. They want more days off. Major League Baseball probably wants to expand their playoff again. I mean, there is a lot of conversations that need to be had on this next CBA where one side wants one thing and the other side wants the complete opposite. How is this going to affect long-term contracts? Are they going to put year limits in? I mean, just so much that you have to unpack with this CBA. So putting Fisher in charge of this, it doesn't make it better. I don't know if it makes it any much worse than it already is, because it's going to get bad. I mean, I think there's a high chance that you miss the majority of the 2027 season, and it is super shortened. Because once that deal is done at the end of the 2026 season, they're not going to get a new deal done before spring training starts. I mean, fat chance. So, we'll see where that plays out. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Thanks again to Marcus for chiming in from Menifee. We also do voice messages, too. You can leave a voice message. On the Odyssey app, if you're listening on the Odyssey app, there is a voice memo that you can leave for us, and you can leave us one of those. So you don't have to call into the station. Also, you can put your comments in the chat. I saw one earlier from Rod, and I haven't seen these, but about a Robert Suarez potential trade. I think out of all the players that are currently on the Padres roster, the most likely player to be traded is Robert Suarez. Because closers, I mean, they're really luxuries most teams cannot afford. And the thing with the Padres right now is they have a guy that could go in and close right now if they traded Suarez. His name is Jason Adam. So I think it'd be beneficial to the Padres to potentially trade Suarez. Now, Rod's question was, he saw a thing that Tampa Bay or St. Louis was interested. I can see Tampa Bay maybe being interested. If you're going to go with Tampa, you're going to have to get some prospects back for Suarez. I don't know what St. Louis. St. Louis doesn't make any sense. I mean, why would they trade for a closer? They're not even ready to really compete right now, and they're trying to get rid of Arenado. And in the chat, they're like, "What about Arenado for Suarez? That's never going to work." Padres are trying to get rid of money, not add money. Contract for Arenado is still pretty high. It's not the worst. I mean, if the Cardinals could take half, but I don't know why they would for a closer, and it makes a little bit of sense, but then you have to move him to first base. It's just too much. I know they saw I know some people and media guys saw the connections because Arenado's a SoCal guy, and the Padres weren't on his no trade, and he's willing to move positions for certain teams. But I just don't see it happening. Arenado's getting $32 million this year, $27 next year, $15 the year after that. He's about to be 34 years old. You could trade Suarez. Suarez is a free agent at the end of the year anyway. The thing with Suarez is I wasn't even really confident in him pitching in the postseason last year. He's owed $10 million this year. You can free up some money. He's going to leave at the end of the year anyway. What you have to pay him in order to keep him would be probably close to the level of Josh Hader, which you're not going to do. You might as well get something out of him before he leaves. You could load up on bullpen arms. You don't need... It's good to have a closer, and I'm not saying the Padres don't need a closer. I'm just saying they have found many pitchers to be their closers who have done exceptional jobs. That back end of the bullpen for the Padres, even without Suarez, is still legit. And you can go get another arm at the deadline. Maybe you can get a closer at the deadline. And closers do emerge during the season that is not getting paid as much as Suarez that might be under contract for a couple of years. So you can trade Suarez. And I think that's not a bad idea for the Padres. And if they make any trades during the season where they part ways with a player, if they're parting ways with a pitcher, it's going to be Suarez more than it's going to be King or Cease. I mean, at this point in time, the way that you got the Pivetta deal done, you're set up to go after it in the first half and at the deadline have an exit plan if it doesn't work out. I mean, the Padres have to have a really good first half to the season as to not convince A.J. Preller to potentially sell at the deadline and start stripping a lot of these players away. But as Xander Bogaerts mentioned in the article with Kevin Acee, as mentioned, their time is now. They can't keep punting down the road because they got it is now for Machado and for Bogaerts in their primes. They ain't getting any younger. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. And head on down to the South Bay. Kevin in Chula Vista. Kevin, it's been a while. What's going on?
Hey, man, it's good to hear you back on the free airwaves here. Braden, hope you're doing well.
Doing well, Kevin.
Yeah, to I think piggyback on the CBA and what might happen or might not happen. I don't know, just from a fan standpoint, I don't know how other people feel. I don't know how you feel. But I, frankly, am getting sick to death of every time I turn on sports talk or turn on baseball talk or sports in general. We're let off every single day with this barrage of inane, endless discussion about money, who's making what, when, where, why, and how. I'm tired of it. And I think that where professional sports in general is at a tipping point, you can see this by some of the ratings going down in the NBA and what have you. Even the NFL was down this year, the mighty NFL. You know, the folks out here, we can't relate to this. And we don't make that kind of money. We're never going to make that kind of money. All we want to do is go to our favorite sports and favorite sports venue, watch a couple of teams play and compete the best they can. This now has, and even college sports is in danger. This has gotten so far out of the realm of human reality they better pay attention to this, because the goose that laid the golden egg, if they continue down this road, why don't we just line up all of the free agents, Braden, at the end of the year or during the offseason, put them in front of the Dodgers and say, okay, take what you want, and then what's left over, it gets distributed to baseball. So that's I understand all the intricacies of the inner workings of the mechanics of of financing and all of that. I get it, but I'm tired of it as a fan.
The thing is all of these leagues don't understand. Again, as you mentioned, it's totally true. They live in a fantasy world that most people do not live in. I mean, they're in the top 1% of earners in the United States. Everybody involved at this level. Obviously, it affects pro sports, is why you have to talk about it. But I agree. I mean, nobody wants to hear millionaires and billionaires bitch that they don't get enough, when most people that live in all of these cities barely have enough money to put food on the table and live a decent life in the United States with everything that's going about, without getting, political on different things. But it's 100% true. And I think the way that they act, I think the way that the NBA players don't even want to play most of the time, I think the way that a lot of these other pro sports leagues, it's just a money fest. You're starting to see it in college now. It's a major turnoff, and they're going to kill the goose that lays the golden egg very shortly if they're not careful.
Yeah, and, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Scott Boras this morning on MLB, but, I mean, this cat is talking about, hundreds of millions that the players need to make, and because the owners are getting the billions, and I'm like, dude, I don't care. I mean, you know what? Go have that conversation in the closest public bar someplace with other people. But the fans out here, I don't care. And I'm sick of it. And so I don't want to be repetitive here. But nonetheless, I think the point is that, as you just said and I just said, they're on a tipping point here. And they need to wake up and smell the coffee. And someone needs to tell them. I mean, really, and just slap them. And that's kind of the way I feel today. Hope you're doing well and hang in there.
All right, Kevin. Appreciate the phone call. Thank you very much. Brings up a good point. And it kind of encompasses the difference between what the pro sports are now to what the Four Nations face-off was. These guys are playing their ass off for their country. Money doesn't matter at that point. And that's what people want to see. That's what made sports so entertaining, is what you saw last night in Team USA versus Team Canada in the rink, on the ice. I mean, now with the NBA, I mean, it's so much just coasting all the time, and they have made it such a luxurious life. It's hard to get that energy that you try to get and that certain players have. And he makes a good point. It's hard. It falls on deaf ears when you try to get the general public to feel bad for millionaires and billionaires complaining that they don't have enough money. I mean, fans can't afford the games in general. They can't afford. It's hard to even afford to watch these games because of all the channels they're on and everything like that. And eventually, when it comes down to people's livelihoods, these are luxuries. And if they can't afford the luxury, they are not going to pay for it. It is worth what somebody is willing to pay. We say that with free agency all the time. And if the sport itself and the level of play is not worth the price of admission, people aren't going to pay for it anymore. They're just not. And when you have to shell out thousands of dollars to go to a game, and that's everybody, it's hard to try to make that work when you could be using that money for other things. Kevin brings up a good point. That'll do it for me today on the Braden Surprenant Show. We're off next week. Be back the week after that. We got Padres spring training continuing this week on all the shows. We'll talk to you on the Annie and Elston Show on Tuesday. No shows tomorrow on President's Day. Enjoy your holiday off. We'll talk to you this week.